You know, back in the early 2000s to the 2010s, zombie games were plentiful. And sadly, it kind of killed and oversaturated the genre of game. Now, growing up, I was a huge zombie fan, so there was no such thing as an oversaturation for me. I literally wanted to play all of them. What's up, Danksters? Welcome back to another episode of Zombie Games Are Cool, and this episode we're going to be talking about Dead Rising. And also, Dead Rising is no stranger to this channel. I've talked about the franchise a couple times in the past, and in the future there's going to be more times as well. Now, I've always been a massive Dead Rising fan. I've stated that several times before, and it's just been so sad to see this great franchise turn good to bad so quickly. Dead Rising 2 off the record is my favorite in the series, and it overlaps the original Dead Rising 2 in my opinion. Dead Rising 3 couldn't really grab me, and Nick as a character annoys me. And Dead Rising 4? Well, I guess that just depends on what day you ask me. I really do enjoy the Christmas aesthetic to Dead Rising 4 a lot. People know on this channel that I am a huge Christmas buff. I love Christmas related things, so Dead Rising 4 does pull me in that way, but also Dead Rising 4 is not a good game, so it also takes me away. However, like I stated in the past before, Dead Rising, when I got my original 360, is a game I played the fuck out of. And I've never really done a video on it. I've always said that I didn't really know much about this game like I knew about Dead Rising 2 off the record. But I can say that has greatly changed from me just playing this game for this video. I have to say, I think my knowledge for the first Dead Rising game actually outweighs my knowledge now on Dead Rising 2. And, spoiler alert, Dead Rising 1 might be my favorite game in the franchise. And we're gonna find out why today. Especially now, since there is a remake in the works, which, by the way, I totally fucking called. In the light of all these remakes going around, I'm sure maybe that the first Dead Rising game will surely get a remake. Think about it. If Dead Space, a game from 2008, can get a remake, then why can't Dead Rising, a game from 2006, get one? It is of the era of remakes, and Capcom is really big in that. Maybe after the Resident Evil 4 remake, we might hear something about it. I don't know. That's my guess. Yeah, so the remake of this game is coming out in September, and I figured that what better way, what perfect time than to go back and revisit the original 2006 Dead Rising. So since we're covering this game, I think it makes sense to start with the story. Frank West, a photojournalist, has been hearing a lot of reports of riots going on in Willamette, Colorado. Wanting to get the scoop, he takes this opportunity to fly over the town to see what's going on. The military has barricaded the streets, so helicopter was really the only option. Seeing the town overrun, Frank decides to go to the shopping mall to get a better idea of what's going on and will need to be picked up in 3 days.
Don't forget to come back for me.
As long as you're not dead, Fred.
It's Frank. Frank West. Remember that name, because the whole world's gonna know it in 3 days.
And it's right here where we'll see Dead Rising has a time limit, where you'll see that this whole story runs on a time system. Getting to the mall, Frank has an encounter with a strange figure on the roof nearby the helipad. After that, we enter the mall and find out that zombies have overrun Willamette.
Get yourself eaten alive by zombies?
What? Did you just say zombies?
Gathering supplies in the back, Frank is harassed by an old man. However, shortly after, this old lady, who must be Superman, pushes these guys out of the way and barges open the doors so she can let her dog in, but accidentally lets all the zombies in instead, and it quickly overruns the mall. Frank just barely makes it out and ends up in the mall security room, where we meet the other main survivors of this story: Brad, Jesse, and Otis. After the door gets sealed by Otis, Brad wants to head back into the mall by the air vents, because if Frank survived, maybe other survivors are out there as well. Brad leaves, and then Frank follows shortly after. When we emerge, there are these 2 survivors up on the roof here for us to save that I guess Brad just ignored. I'll talk about the survivors a little bit later on, but how did Brad walk right past these 2? After making our own way back into the mall, Jesse informs us that Brad is in trouble at the food court, so with haste we head on over there to help out. When we get there, Frank is quick to be shot at, and we find out that the man who is shooting at us is the same man that we met on the roof. After helping Brad, we find out that him and Jesse are actually DHS agents, and after some negotiating, the 2 of them team up. Following Brad through the Alfresca Plaza to Entrance Plaza to find that old man that harassed Frank in the beginning of the game, turns out that old man is very important, and this is Dr. Barnaby, and he happens to be Brad and Jesse's target. But too bad for us and too bad for Brad, he's being a stubborn old man and then locks himself inside the bookstore. And this is where the time mechanic comes in, because after this the story kind of pauses and then you're just kind of free to roam until the next bit of the story continues. So you could take this time and go around the mall and kill zombies or explore and see what all you can do, but however, there are a lot of times in this game where I just sat around waiting for the next case to start up. It's not a big deal, but something that's worth bringing up. But after some time passes and it turns the same guy who attacked us earlier and the same guy that we met on the roof actually has Dr. Barnaby captured now. Shutting that shit down quickly, Brad gets injured in the process by receiving a gunshot to the leg. This now puts us in a predicament because now Frank has to go out and fetch some medicine, which happens to be in the supermarket. Here we run into the owner of the supermarket who has gone batshit insane, but also has a woman in his modified shopping cart. Defeating him, we save the baddie and she freaks out at the sight of Frank, talking about this Santa Cabeza stuff, and then she runs off. Frank finds himself back at the security room where we find out that Dr. Barnaby isn't all that innocent. Looking at the monitors, we see the woman from the supermarket again on a motorcycle back at the supermarket. So we have to haul ass back over there and confront her with a fight where we make quick work of her, as always, as it is with these mini bosses in Dead Rising. Frank then questions her where she reveals herself to be Isabella Keyes, and she is the sister of the guy from earlier who is named Carlito. And after some talking, she promises that she will set up an interview with Carlito and Frank. However, it doesn't quite go down that way because she comes back to the spot where she said to meet, alone and wounded. Carlito shot her and now we have to bring her back to the security room, where she then tells us that Santa Cabeza was a home to an America research facility that experimented on cows, and Dr. Barnaby was in charge of it. The reason she knows is because she was a research assistant, or on why she was uttering it. It was pretty much because it was ground zero for the outbreak. A drug was mass produced there and it caused the zombifying effect, essentially infecting people intentionally. And with her being a research assistant, consists of her knowing that the wasps were used to enhance cows, but instead of doing that, they actually turned people into zombies. And it's at this moment where Dr. Barnaby starts to turn into a zombie and attacks Jesse, then quickly being put down after by Brad. Isabella then lets the group know that Carlito is planning to use the mall to spread the infection across the country, using bombs that are planted in trucks in the underground maintenance tunnels. So Frank and Brad rush to disable the bombs, although it looks more like Frank just does it to me. Actually, Brad just gets into a firefight with Carlito, and while he does get a good shot in on Carlito, Carlito still gets the upper hand here, knocking Brad into a room full of zombies into the maintenance tunnels. Meanwhile, we get wind that Carlito, after the fight, gets captured by a butcher, who wants to chop up Carlito because he's not tainted meat. Beating the butcher, we free Carlito, who gives Frank his locket right before his death. During all of this, Isabella has been trying to get into Carlito's laptop, but couldn't figure out the password of how to get in. So when Frank eventually ends up at the secret hideout with her, Frank gives her the locket, which gives her a hint at what the password could be, and she figures it out. Frank then gets a radio call from Jesse saying how the entire event here will be covered up by the military.
Quarters, but the government has decided to deny all knowledge of what happened here. Special forces will arrive for cleanup at midnight. They'll take everyone out. Zombies, people, everyone.
However, US Special Forces do show up and try to help Jesse. Unfortunately, Jesse turns into a zombie and kills the soldiers. On my playthrough, I was actually able to make it back to the safe room to see Jesse and put her out of her misery. After everything seems lost, the 3 days ends and Frank makes his way back to the helipad. And as soon as we think the game is about to end, the helicopter starts to come back. However, a zombie was on board the entire time and then kills the pilot, causing the helicopter to crash, ending the game.
Yeah! Yeah, you did it! You did it! Yeah!
Yeah, the 72 hours does end like that. However, if you got the good ending with the pilot crashing, you unlock overtime mode. And starting up overtime mode, Isabella makes it to the helipad right when Frank has given up and passes out. Isabella manages to bring Frank back to her safe room where she breaks the news to Frank that he's infected. I wonder how that happened. However, if we go out into the mall and gather supplies around, Isabella might be able to make a suppressant. And it's here where we learn that Carlito has infected over 50 children and was going to put one in each state to help spread the infection.
We had 50 doses of the drug prepared. Not long after that, the NPO managed to find homes for a large group of children. Want to guess just how many?
God. Are you saying he infected these kids and then gave them your drug?
That's kinda fucked up that Carlito was trying to spread that all over the country. And after going through a gauntlet of zombies, which we were only able to because Isabella was able to make a suppressant cologne, we run into Brock, the commander of the military, and he is actually the final boss. Which, if you are not prepared to take his ass out, you are going to get your ass handed to you. It's just plain and simple. Brock is a deaf motherfucker. All the weapons you had on you from the gauntlet are now just gone. After the auto turret section, you fight Brock one-on-one, bare fist, and he is a difficult boss. But knocking his ass into a crowd full of zombies, Frank lets out a scream and then it fades to black, where in text on a black screen, no, I'm not kidding you, white text on a black screen, which is such a big letdown, like not even a cutscene or anything, where we find out that Frank and Isabella did in fact escape Willamette. However, without diving into further source material, that's about it. Frank tells the story and then the end. The story was actually pretty decent here. I had a really good time experiencing it. Because dirty little secret here, I've actually never beaten the original Dead Rising before, so actually getting into it was pretty cool. All besides the ending, I think it's a pretty solid time here. And while the story might be great, it's where the gameplay comes in, is where Dead Rising truly shines. Since the main location of the game is a shopping mall, you can imagine that you can pretty much pick up whatever you want to use it against the zombies. And I have to say, there is nothing more satisfying than beating these zombies up. Capcom really nailed the system here. Like, you can literally choose to beat these zombies up and kill these zombies with literally anything. There's just so much here that you could use to fight against zombies. It's actually pretty cool. And the idea of that really makes Dead Rising stand out amongst all other zombie games. Also, with this fact, it makes replaying Dead Rising really cool because you're not always going to get the same weapon, you might not always take the same route, and you might not always kill the same zombies the same way. To me, that's giving more incentive to replay the game, and I have to say Dead Rising does do that really well. It also helps that if you beat the game or want to start the game new from scratch, you can re-carry over Frank's levels. Now, you don't need to do this, you can just play the game from level 1 to whatever you make it through, but I highly recommend getting the level 5 and starting a new game and starting from there, because you don't really have much starting out, and that jump kick, I swear to you, is very essential to have. So the weapons are scattered around the mall. You'll just find them randomly here and there, and they also have a health bar to them, so they make sure that you don't get to just spam whatever weapon you want to use for eternity. And you have to be careful because the weapons in this game can break very easily if you're not careful. Thankfully, each item in your top right corner has a flashing meter, so whenever your weapon starts to flash, you'll know when it starts to break. And it makes you really start to item manage a lot because you'll never know when that last swing will be on the broken weapon, and it makes it very tense, and I do like that. Food is here, food is scattered all over the mall, and it's actually this game's main source of health. And there's quite a bit here. Whatever you eat too does vary on how much health you'll get back, so let's say you eat an apple, you'll only get like 1 block of health back, but let's say you drink an orange juice, then you're more likely to get 4 to 5 health back. You have to be careful on what you get to because there are a lot of 1 health items. I actually recommend carrying an orange juice or something like that with you at all times in this game because it can be pretty fucking hard to get through. That is, unless you understand how this game works, and Dead Rising does have a sort of fun mechanic that allows you to increase your weapons and your food. So the weapons breaking so easily can actually be pretty easily to fix. There are magazines all around Dead Rising, and if you don't know about the magazines, well, these things are a lifesaver, and I definitely recommend looking up what magazines you need to get. For me personally, I always make sure to get the sharp edge magazines that allow me to use the chainsaw, the mini one that you get from Adam, up to like 3,000 times. It's insane on the durability. There are other magazines that increase the blunt weapon durability too. Also, there are magazines that allow you to increase food items to give you more health. So maybe a single block health item will go up to 3. And speaking of health items, you can actually blend them together. In certain shops, there will be a blender or a stove, and these will also allow you to increase and enhance your food options. The stove does exactly what you think it does. It cooks things, and it cooks frozen pizza and raw steak. So instead of eating the frozen and raw stuff, which give you like 1 or 2 health, you'll cook it and get like 4 or 5. It's super helpful to do, and I recommend doing it. However, the real charm comes from the blenders. Mixing certain things in the blenders will give you different kind of shakes, and I swear to God, I've always was running back to the food court to make myself Quick Step. Quick Step is such a savior in this game. I highly recommend looking up how to do it. In fact, actually, you're not looking it up. I'm going to tell you how to do it right now. You take the yogurt and you take the popsicles in the food court and you put it in the blender. I know there might be other ways to make it, but this is how I did it. And I swear, like 25% of my game was just running back and forth through the food court, making sure I had Quick Step, because Frank moves so slow in the game when you are a low level. So you really need to get the Quick Step to get, you know, fucking move on, or else you're just gonna be running like molasses. Now, since Frank West is a photojournalist, it makes sense that he has a camera with him, and the camera is actually a mechanic that you use in this game. Now, in my opinion, there's not really a lot of incentive to use the camera. In fact, I think you can pretty much go the entire game without using it once. But it sure does help to learn how to use it. For starters, the camera can help you get more prestige points, which is this game's experience. And it doesn't matter what picture you take, as long as there's at least a zombie in the photo, you're at least getting a little bit of prestige points. There's also hidden PP stickers around the mall that you can take pictures of that will give you bonus experience if you manage to grab them with your camera. But with the camera, probably the most amount of PP you'll get while taking pictures is on the survivors and the psychopaths. Now, it's about time that we started talking about the survivors of Dead Rising 1. Okay, so in the beginning, the survivors, and there are a lot of these, are actually manageable to bring back to the safe room. But I swear to God, some of these AI on the survivors will just make you pull out your hair. But that's not what I'm here to talk about right now. So sometimes the survivors, when they have an interaction with themselves or something like that, a big yellow PP will flash over their heads, and that's for you to take a picture of to get bonus experience. I think you get up to 5,000 if you can angle the camera just correctly. Now, this will happen in a different bunch of scenarios, but yeah, this is probably the best way to get it in terms of with the survivors. Now, like I was saying, most of the survivors are pretty manageable to bring back to the safe room. In fact, if you give them weapons, they're downright easy to bring back. That is a mistake I didn't do for this playthrough. I didn't tend to give a survivor any weapons, and I paid the price for that quite a bit. But even if I did give them weapons, I have no faith that their AI would have made it, because some of these characters were just so brain dead that it was like impossible to bring them back. I swear the AI varies on which survivor you bring back to the safe room. It's ridiculous. There were some survivors like Kendall, which was just an absolute G, and I understand why. It was because he needed to be so he can help you kind of bring Isabella back to the safe room. But then there was just some AI that was just awful, just unbearable, just ridiculous. Now, obviously, I didn't save all the survivors in this playthrough. I think it is possible to do that, but I'm not sure. I don't know if it is or not. But I have to say, it's pretty fucking hard to do so. Oh, but then there's the psychopaths, the other side of the survivor coin. These are survivors who have completely lost it and are Dead Rising's mini bosses, to put it in layman terms. I'll just say make sure you have a lot of food on you, unless you have have those mini chainsaws. Because I'll say, those mini chainsaws tend to make every single boss in this game, at least the bosses I've encountered, a straight up joke. I just get on them and just start ramming them to make sure they don't get up. Make sure they just complete jokes at the end of the day. But if you don't have the chainsaws and you're not willing to run back and forth like I was for them when they break or get the magazines, then make sure you are stocked up on food, because some of these survivors are no joke. Also, just like the normal survivors, the psychopaths will have a moment where they'll have a yellow PP above their head for you to take a picture of to get bonus XP during the fight. Graphically, I have to say, Dead Rising 1 is one beautiful game. For 2006, this game looks downright amazing, and it definitely does show off the power of the Xbox 360 for when this game came out. The look of this game gives off such like a realistic vibe that it's kind of uncanny. Just the title screen alone where the zombies are walking toward the mall, it's actually really chilling to just look at and absorb with the music playing in the background. Gives me chills. The zombies just move so realistically in this game that it's pretty creepy. The music, how can we not talk about the music? Dead Rising 1 has such an amazing soundtrack, but to me, mostly the music's the goats go to the mall music. There is something so beautiful about having this peaceful music playing in the background, and you are just tearing up and destroying and killing every zombie in your path to just a single... I said it in my Xbox 360 retrospective, it is just a beautiful contrast of the two. The fact they have this calming, luring mall music to the harsh reality of the bloody killing zombies. It's such a perfect clash. So, with all that said, could I recommend Dead Rising 1 to you? Yeah, I can. Dead Rising 1 is such a fantastic game. I'll admit, it is a little bit challenging. It is a bit hard. You know, you're not going to just jump in and immediately get a hold of this game. This is one of the games you kind of have to master. And I have no doubt in my mind that it will give you a tough time when you first play it. But anybody who is a fan of this game already knows that Dead Rising 1 is a masterpiece. And because that remake is around the corner, well, it was just a perfect time to bring it up. It was a perfect time to finally cover it on this channel. To go back to see where Dead Rising started as a franchise was a really cool thing to see. It was a really cool thing to play, and to finally beat this game for the first time felt like me checking off a thing on my bucket list. You know, my video game bucket list. I'm sure we all have those where we take a long time to finally get around to a game we just beat. And I definitely wanted to beat it before the remake came out, because I want to play the remake and get into it and see all the differences between the two. See what they did differently. You best believe a couple Dead Rising remake videos will be coming out. One on the game, one about my thoughts about the game. I want to talk about the remake, and we will when it gets here. I still have to pre-order it, and I'm going to do that soon. Well, Danksters, you have made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Dead Rising 1 has been one of my favorite games for a long time, and because I love talking about zombie games, and this is Zombie Games Are Cool, it's a franchise I do, it's a series I do, one episode a year, unfortunately. I just have a hard time getting around to these, but I love Dead Rising, and I want to talk about it, so I made a video on it. My socials are in the description down below. I highly recommend going down, taking the time, and following me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the things that I have down there. Also, I have a Patreon. It'd mean the world to me if you went down there and donated. All I'm asking is $1 a month. I don't have any fancy tiers or anything like that. Just $1, and that would be it. Also, if you guys want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button and the bell for post notifications, because I wouldn't want you to miss a single upload of mine, and it would take like 10 seconds, and I'd be greatly appreciated. Well, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. I got more zombies to kill in anticipation for that remake, and I'm gonna get on it. So, take care.